Well, hi and welcome to another LRCC Soundbite. This year, I'm going to be taking a look through some of the oldest stories in the Bible, thinking about what they tell us about the world that we still live in today. I'll think about how events thousands of years ago shaped the society that Jesus grew up and lived in, and then how that shapes things that Christians believe today. So, let me introduce you to a man called Abram. Abram lived in a place called LRCC. Cleverer people than me believe that this was in present-day Iraq, about 200 miles or so southeast of Baghdad. He'd lived there a long time. When he was 75 years old, God spoke to him. That's not a common occurrence. First time in 75 years. And what God said to him was, leave that place that you're in and go travelling. Become a bit of a nomad, I guess, really. He was married to a woman called Sarai. So he packed up everything, took Sarai and his whole household, animals, possessions, everything, and went off to live this nomadic life. God led him to an area called Canaan. Present day, that includes Israel, the West Bank, Gaza, Jordan, parts of Syria, Lebanon. After travelling around there for a bit, they ended up in Egypt. So, they got around quite a lot. You see, God had made Abram a promise that he would be the ancestor of a great nation, a nation that God would bless and look after, a nation that would end up blessing the whole world. God told him he would have so many ancestors, no one would ever be able to count them, as many as there are stars in the sky. Now, of course, when God told Abram this, he was a little surprised. After all, he was 75 years old. Sarai was also old. They had no children. And many descendants? How does that work? But then again, it's not every day God speaks to you. So Abram believed God's promise. He had no idea how it was going to happen, but he faithfully did what God had said and went where God had led him. Later in the journey, God would give him a new name. He called him Abraham, and he called his wife Sarah. They did eventually have a baby, but I'll say more about that next week. But come back to who this man was, Abram, when God spoke to him. He wasn't anyone special in the world's eyes. He'd lived a long life to this point. If it was me, I'd be looking forward to a bit of a retirement, putting my feet up, being looked after. But that wasn't how things turned out. And in fact, he had a great many adventures and found himself learning and really paralleling so many things that were going to happen in the future, how God would go about sending Jesus to fix that broken relationship between God and us humans. How we could come to know God as a friend and as a saviour. But all this came from an unremarkable man in an unremarkable place. For me, it says something about what God sees in us. You see, to him, no one is unremarkable. When Jesus was around in Israel 2,000 years ago, he deliberately made time for those that society thought were unremarkable. Yes, he was there for the important people, but he was no less there for everybody else, wherever they stood in the social standings, whoever they were, whatever they did. The same is still true today. God sees every single life on this earth as remarkable, as special, as worth bothering about. That includes you, and that includes me. Nobody is excluded. And to me, that's great news. If you ever wanted to read any of these stories for yourself but haven't got a copy of the Bible, if you live near us, do get in touch. We'd love to get a free copy to you. Have a great week, and I'll see you next time.